Ahead this hour, fear grips immigrant communities in the US as federal agents arrest hundreds across the country in a number of raids. Plus, Russian President Vladimir Putin says he's ready to meet the new US president, hoping for improved relations between Moscow and Washington. And the forgotten refugees, the desperate reality for thousands who are fleeing fighting in the world's youngest nation, South Sudan. Hello, I'm Lynda Kinkade. Welcome to CNN Newsroom. US federal agents have arrested hundreds of undocumented immigrants in raids across several major US cities as President Donald Trump vows to salvage his controversial travel ban. It was the first major operation by immigration officials since President Donald Trump took office. Officials in Los Angeles say the raids targeted known criminals. Arrests have been carried out in at least 5 states, 160 in California alone. Apart from the raids, there is the case of Guadalupe Garcia de Reyes, the 35-year-old mother of 2 who was deported from Arizona to Mexico on Thursday. She'd lived in the US for 21 years. Well, anti-Trump rallies are being planned across Mexico on Sunday. Let's talk about how this story is playing out on both sides of the border. CNN politics reporter Tal Copan is in Washington, and CNN's Shasta Darlington joins us from Mexico City. Great to have you both with us. I'll start with you, Tal. Despite the fact that immigration organizations are reporting an uptick in arrests, the government claims this roundup that we're seeing is just routine. What are you hearing?
Yes, absolutely. You know, routine is the word they sort of keep using. And, you know, to be certain, the Obama administration also carried out sort of sweeps of enforcement similar to this, where for a several-day period, they went after specific targeted individuals that they said were sort of the highest priority for removal from the country, typically violent criminals or sort of serious felons in that regard. Now, the reason that this is so controversial is this is the first time we've seen such a, you know, as they characterize it, routine enforcement action like this widespread over the country under the Trump administration. And keep in mind, the Trump administration has put out its own set of enforcement priorities that are seen as much, and in fact are much broader than those that the Obama administration operated under. So there's a lot of concern in immigrant communities already about what these enforcement priorities might mean for them. And there are a lot of questions remaining about whether the individuals targeted under these enforcement actions are in any way different from those that were under the Obama administration. And that's why there's still a lot of angst about what actually took place this week out there.
That's right. A lot of concern amongst the immigrant communities, but also concern from the Mexican government. Shasta, to you, the Mexican government is so concerned that it has issued a warning to its citizens. What is it saying?
That's right, Linda, and that's because the view here is that this is not routine. This is anything but routine. While deportations have been going on for years under the Obama administration as well, the government said that this case of the Arizona woman, Guadalupe Garcia de Reyes, being deported, it shows that what they're calling, there's a new order, basically, under the Trump administration. They say they're concerned about severe restrictions, so they've issued this warning to all Mexicans living in the United States to keep in close contact with the consulates. They say they're even concerned that the constitutional rights of these individuals could eventually be violated. So they're stepping up their staff at the consulates. We even saw the president himself, Enrique Peña Nieto, go to the airport here in Mexico City, where he greeted 135 deported migrants as they arrived on a plane to tell them, you're not alone, we've got your back, we are going to help you. Some of the cities here have said that they will help pay for the legal fees of migrants who came from their cities and went to the United States, if that's what it comes to. So a lot of anger and fear here, but also, you know, all of this is really little consolation to those Mexicans who are being separated from their families and returning to a country that they haven't seen for years, often decades, Linda.
Right. We just want to know how far this could go. Tal, to you, President Trump did promise that he would deport 2 to 3 million immigrants with criminal records. He is following through on most of his promises so far. So can we expect this to ramp up?
I think that's the big question on a lot of minds here. And, you know, folks in Washington are also asking these questions. We've already seen several Democratic lawmakers who represent areas that have been affected by these sweeps, writing to the Trump administration, writing to Department of Homeland Security, putting out statements, asking for more information. You know, one important note, the ICE says that the planning for these raids actually began in the Obama administration. We don't know what sort of stage of planning they were when Trump took over and whether any changes were made to the targets. Those are still questions that remain. But there is some carryover. The big question is whether these will continue to be sort of semi-annual or quarterly, or whether there's going to be a vast increase in the amount we see these. And again, you know, I think the biggest question is, who are these enforcement actions going over? You know, Trump has promised to get the, quote, bad guys out. And, you know, if it's just violent criminals, there isn't as much concern. But if we start to see, you know, as we get to millions being deported, if we start to see a lot of these individuals who may otherwise live here peacefully, but for example, like the woman mentioned earlier, had, you know, a conviction for using a fake social security number, which a lot of undocumented immigrants are guilty of in some cases. You know, if those sort of low priority targets under the Obama administration start to get wrapped up into this, you're going to see much more of a public outcry from some of these Democrats and advocates.
Absolutely, and we are already seeing that outcry. Shasta, I understand that there are anti-Trump protests planned for tomorrow.
That's right, Lynda. Those same fears are being felt here. So tomorrow, what we're expecting are protests across the country, but here in Mexico City in particular, two massive protests that are going to start around midday local time and then converge right here where I'm standing. They're going to sing the national anthem. And the idea is they want to really show the world how they feel about these new Trump policies, whether it's on immigration or his proposal to go ahead and build the wall dividing two friendly countries. And I think it's also, to a certain degree, to step up the pressure on the government. While on the face of it, they say that this is just to bring everybody together, this is not anti-Mexican government, this is also so that their voices can be heard, to let the government know that they want the president, Enrique Peña Nieto, to stand strong, to not back down when it comes to renegotiating trade deals or when Trump demands that Mexico pay for the wall. They want to show that Mexico's pretty united behind this. No backing down here, Lynda.
Yeah, the president there certainly being tested on his leadership right now too. Shasta, Darlington and Tal Copan, great to have you both with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynda.